All right, good evening. I will now call to order the Monday, July 1st, 2024 regular Town Council meeting. If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I guess before we get started here on the agenda real quick, I just wanted to take a minute and offer my condolences and perhaps even the condolences on behalf of the council to Janice Stevanovic, her family, I should say, and friends. Janice worked for the town. She was always a joy to work with here, very prepared and certainly had a great personality. I was really sad to hear about her recent passing. She'll be missed by many, and I would ask that you just keep her family and friends in your prayers. So, up next on the agenda, we have the swearing in of firefighters, and we will have Chief James Van Gorder and Mayor Stair.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. A little bit about this group of 6 firefighters for the Zionsville Fire Department. This is the fire department's first plus positive hiring in 6+ years. We've had several retirements and replacements of vacancies within the organization, but this is the first time the Zionsville Fire Department has had any additional staff added in the past 6 years. These individuals began a joint recruit class with the Pike Township Fire Department. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Fire Chief Jeff Beam of the Pike Township Fire Department for allowing us to join that class. It was made up of Speedway, City of Lawrence, Lebanon, Zionsville, and as well as Pike Township firefighters recruits. There were 18 when they started, 15 completed the course. This is not given. This is a very difficult program, and these individuals tonight, as we swear them in, are to be commended. There were 21 total weeks of the academy. 8 of those were in the emergency medical services, 1 week of hazmat, 1 week of vehicle extrication, and 11 weeks of firefighting 1 and 2. The cadre or group of instructors that came before this group was amazing, totaling 11 primary instructors. Notable within the Zionsville Fire Department was our EMS manager, Carrie O'Haver, Ryan Sparks, our division chief of training, Vincent Randolph, our public educator, and Captain Rob Kuhnfield were all primary instructors as part of this academy. Quick item of note, a few years ago, 30+ years ago, when I was hired to the city of Indianapolis, I was given 1 training burn before I was sworn in the Indianapolis Fire and put in. The men today in this class that graduated for Zionsville Fire Department had over 40+ live fires through this cadre program before they were reporting for duty. Other noteworthy items, and I know most people came to see them, so I'll be quiet and let the mayor come forward next, but I would be amiss if I did not mention there were 2 significant awards given in this class, and we were honored to have both within Zionsville Fire Department. So when you see Adam Masters this evening, he received the Mental Attitude Award winner for the class, and then the highest academic honor, the number 1 in the class, was Andrew Schulten. So those 2 individuals received top honors within the program. At this time, it's my honor to introduce Mayor John Stair to swear them in.
Thank you, Chief. And first, I would like to call forward John Adelaide.
If your family would like to come up and join you, feel free.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, John Adelaide, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all my official duties in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve. So help me God. Congratulations. Bagg III. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Douglas Bagg III, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all my official duties in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve. So help me God. Thomas Bullock. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Thomas Bullock, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all my official duties in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve. So help me God. Adam Master.
Welcome aboard, Tom.
Please raise your right hand. I, Adam Masters, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all my official duties in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve. So help me God. Congratulations. Zachary Prickett.
Congratulations. Thank you. Welcome aboard, Adam. Thanks, sir.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, I, Zachary Prickett,
I, Zachary Pickett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana.
and the ordinances of Zionsville, Indiana.
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge all my official duties
discharge all my official duties
in the position of firefighter
in the position of firefighter
for the town of Zionsville,
for the town of Zionsville,
regardless of the race,
regardless of race,
creed,
creed,
color,
color,
religion,
religion,
sex,
sex,
or national origin
or national origin
of the persons I serve.
or the persons I serve.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Andrew Schulte.
Welcome aboard, Zach. Next meal's on you.
Ready? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Andrew Schulte,
I, Andrew Schulter,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana.
and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana.
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge all my official duties
discharge all my official duties
in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville,
in the position of firefighter for the town of Zionsville,
regardless of the race,
regardless of the race,
creed,
creed,
color,
color,
religion,
religion,
sex,
sex,
or national origin
or national origin
of the persons I serve.
of the persons I serve.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Mr. President, if I could, I'd like to have Deputy Chief Josh Frost conclude this evening swearing in with a couple important mementos.
Certainly.
Okay, this is really a message for all of our probationary firefighters now. You have joined our family with the Zionsville Fire Department, and as a result, you are part of our history. And we hope that when you look back on your career, you write the story that you want your legacy to be, and you're defining what your history is going to be. As a memento of that, the executive staff collectively got together, and we have a special celebration bottle for you to open in 20 years, and you'll see that it's got the crest and the open after date in June 7th of 2044, that you can sit down with your classmates, your shift mates, pour a toast, and remember what your legacy is and tell the stories of your career. So we hope that you'll accept these. We have these for you upstairs afterward. In addition to that, regardless of what your religious affiliation is, St. Florian is the patron saint of firefighters. And for each of you, we have a Maltese cross with St. Florian on it with your unit number on the back that we would like for you to wear. And when you feel it against your chest, you remember that there are a lot of people counting on you. Your family's counting on you to return home. Your shift mates and your coworkers are planning on you to do your job, as you're going to be counting on them to do their job, so that everybody goes home safe. It's going to be a constant reminder of what we're called to do, and stay safe so that you can get home to your families, which rely on you to be there for them. That you're providing for your families, and it's a noble, honorable profession. And with that, we'd like you to accept those and wear it with pride as well, so that you remember what you're here to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief and Mayor Stair, and to all the new firefighters, thank you very much. This is always such a neat and humbling ceremony to have in town council chambers, and appreciate you guys doing that here with us. I would, if it's okay, if you'd like, maybe just offer a couple minutes to everybody, clear the room. You don't have to stick around for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to, and you can head out there, and we'll pause here and wait for you guys to head out there. So. Seventeenth, 2024 Town Council Meeting Memoranda. A copy's been posted. Are there questions from councilors?
I found a typo on page 11 of 15. It's not a big deal, but at the end of a sentence, there's like an extra CR, just kind of put there randomly. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you see it, or do you want me to read the sentence that follows?
I can, if it's on page 11, I'll find it.
It's in the middle.
Okay.
Can you kind of see there?
Okay. I will correct it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks. Other than that, I didn't see anything.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting memoranda minutes.
Second.
Second from Counselor Sampson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is the approval of the June 2024 payroll claims. Are there any questions from counselors? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I got a first from Counselor Melton.
Second.
Second from Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Moving along, up next is the approval of the July 1st, 2024 claims. Are there any questions from counselors? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the July 1st, 2024 claims.
First from Counselor Stein,
Second.
second from Counselor Sampson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a request to speak on agenda item. Amy, do we have any requests to speak?
No, we do not.
All right, so then we would move on to the mayor and administration update. Mayor Stair, good evening.
Good evening, councilors. I want to begin tonight by just taking a moment to congratulate our 6 new firefighters that we swore in. Not only do I think all of us appreciate their commitment, but I appreciate the way they show up for each other, too, and the group of folks that we have looking after our safety here in Zionsville. I know that they'll be welcomed with open arms by our current staff. The next item I have is the second fiscal quarter of the year ended yesterday. We believe we are on track with our spending and revenue based on the town budget. All of our accounts are reconciled through the end of May. It will take a few days to do that for June. So we do plan to have a complete mid-year financial report to you at your next meeting, including an update of where we are and how that's going to inform the rest of 2024. And that leads me to budgeting. As you know, we've been working on developing a 5-year spending plan, and this has really been a very helpful tool in the 2025 budgeting process. All of our department heads submitted amendments to their 5-year spending proposals on Friday, and we are working through all of this with our advisors at Crow with the goal of bringing forth an appropriate 5-year plan to show you at your August 5th meeting as well as an initial budget and spend-down plan for our surplus at the budget workshop, which follows the August 5th meeting. Also in finance, the banking RFP is out. Following good practice, we are offering local banks an opportunity to compete for housing our town accounts. The goal is to make sure we're getting the best deal on fees and general banking expenses. We have had significant interest, and right now we're answering questions that have come back, and we expect to report back to you on the results again on August 5th. So it'll be a good day on August 5th. We have a lot to talk about in our finances. One other item here, iPads. Our IT department has purchased iPads for use by not only the town council, but also all of our regularly meeting boards and commissions. They will stay at town hall, they will be on chargers, and they'll be used for all public meetings. As a practical matter, you're still going to get your emails ahead of time with the agenda and other pertinent information, but that information will no longer be printed for you on paper. It will be contained on the iPads that are here at town hall. When you add the cost of paper and toner, we spend about $1,000 a month on printing costs, which these devices will replace. So we expect them to pay for themselves in about 3 months, and then we'll realize significant savings beyond that. The iPads are in-house. They're in the process of being set up, and they will be available to you on your July 15th meeting. Any questions about that? Great. And then briefly, I just wanted to emphasize what President Plunkett said at the beginning. Today we did have a funeral. The town hall was closed for several hours so the staff could attend the funeral for Janice Stevanovic. She had been here a long time, and I think that her impact on Zionsville will be felt for many years to come, so we certainly appreciate her. And then one other thing, the economic development report from Corey Sharp has been presented to you in written form, so that's in your packet. And if you have any questions, she is here to answer questions, but you know, I assume that you all read that ahead of time, and you know, if you had any questions, you can ask them to her now. Otherwise, that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Mayor, are you able to share how many banks engaged with us for the RFP? Just a ballpark, it doesn't have to be exact.
Approximately 9. The rule is they have to have a bank branch within the limits of Zionsville, within the town limits of Zionsville. So as Cindy just informs me, we've had 9 banks respond so far.
That's great.
I don't think I got Corey's presentation.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
Did you get it? We didn't get it. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. Do you
all
want to
right.
step up and talk about
I
it?
was still gonna make sure it wasn't just me. That's why I was doing a little survey
Yeah.
back here. But
No, just to clarify, I do think we may have gotten it in an email, but it just wasn't included in our package.
yeah, I don't know. Did
Yeah.
you guys read it?
I did. It was separate from our package.
Yeah, it was in the email stack I thought that we sent out
Yeah, I think
to you.
it
Yeah.
was,
Amy says it was.
Okay.
but they had printed ones, and I think it was not in their printed one. It was just in
Oh,
the email.
sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
No,
I mean,
it just wasn't in our printed package
Yeah.
that Amy printed, and you know what, I guess I,
Sorry.
Is it the RDC monthly report?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should be in the overall council packet, not
all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Stair. Up next would be any town council updates. Are there any updates from councilors? All right, moving on, old business. There's no items for old business, so up next would be first item of new business, consideration of an encroachment agreement appeal. This is 9167 Iris Lane. We have Lance, Director of DPW, and is Daniel Wood in here as well? Okay, perfect. So I guess we'll probably start with you, Lance.
Thank you and good evening. You recently had a very similar request just in the last few meetings. So hopefully that is still fresh in your minds and what I'm going to say sounds both familiar and consistent. When staff receives an application for an encroachment into a drainage easement, they look for 3 items. one being pipes underground or infrastructure below grade that moves water underground, a swale or a shaped conveyance moving water above ground, or if a portion of the easement is used for either flood staging proper or flood routing. In this case, it was the presence of a well-defined swale that led our staff to deny this request. And we take this approach because we try and move as much subjectivity out of the evaluation. And so that's why we look at three things so that you don't kind of get into a, well, maybe here, maybe there. I have not visited this site, but I have become familiar with it through aerial photography, which is amazing these days, and you can dance around all sorts of angles. And it appears to me that the encroachment portion of this fence is parallel to their back property line, back towards the back of the drainage easement. They actually back up there at the edge of the Spring Knoll subdivision. They back up into Smith Meadows, and then there's a smaller subdivision as well that kind of shares a common backyard. So this looks like it's a section of fence that is being requested to sort of connect the evils that exist already. Now, Spring Knoll has been around for some time, so we don't know when these other fences went in. No encroachment has ever been permitted without proper approvals, but the approaches and stringency of the town has shifted and changed through the years. So as I looked at this situation, this particular situation, the things that I cautioned against at the last meeting, when we really strongly guard against the first introduction of fences and encroachment into an area that become visual cues for subsequent owners and neighbors to say, it's fine, we'll just do what we want to do because there's already a fence and we'll just do all that. That has already happened. So this is kind of like the last domino to fall in that when we try and stop the first domino from falling. So the addition of the fence section along the rear property line at the back of the easement, in my opinion, would not exacerbate any conditions that exist currently, nor would it increase the likelihood of future encroachments. We talked about landscaping. Once you have a closed-in space, future property owners want to landscape it. So this would be an occasion where it would not upset me at all if you exercised your rights, if you so see fit, to override staff. That allows staff to maintain their objective review process and save any subjectivity for discussions in this room.
I mean, I read this plea. It's your house, right? Are you Daniel? Yes. Okay. I read this plea, and I'm a mother of a special needs child. So I see you, I hear you. I can't imagine. I'm grateful that you are saying what you're saying because I can't imagine voting against this. I had a child that I had to run out of my house and search my neighbor's pool for 2 years. I know that fear. And I just want to tell you guys there's nothing like that fear. My children were trained to look for their sibling at the bottom of the pool. So I don't think there needs to be anything else said. When you have a child with documented help, that's why we're a community. That's why we make these votes. So I implore all of you to dig deep into your heart and know that this is not a small request. This is not a dog that we can put a shock collar on. There is a job for us to look out for our community. And that's why I'm going to have to vote yes on this.
I will also say that I visited with Dan today. I went out and I saw the site. Just to describe for everyone, there's a fence that goes up and over the swale on the north side of his property, a fence that goes up and over the swale on the south side of his property, and then half of his backyard is fenced in on the backside by a neighbor behind him. So to your point, Lance, it's literally 3/4 of the way fenced already. This is just an opening that allows his child an opportunity to escape from the backyard, as far as I'm concerned. There's also a great deal of vegetation back there, so some of it's going to have to be removed to put the fence in place anyway, which I genuinely think that vegetation, removing that will actually probably help the flow of water off the back of the swale. The other part is there's also a tree line on the very back of his property, and Dan has graciously decided to move his fence line in from that, so they will not be removing the larger trees that currently are there. So I think he's put every bit of thought into this that he should, and I agree with you in the sense that I don't know if the other neighbors took the appropriate route. I'm thankful that you did and did this the right way, and I'll be following Sarah's lead on this as well.
Any other questions or comments for Lance or for Mr. Wood? We could certainly bring him up if you guys
Yeah,
would like.
I guess, can we ask the petitioner to come up?
Yeah, Lance, is there anything else you'd like to add to this? All right.
Unless something comes up here from conversation.
Yeah, Mr. Wood, if you wouldn't mind just coming up to the microphone and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Daniel Wood at 9167 Iris Lane in Spring Knoll.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood, just real quick, so particularly when Joe Stein and I were out walking this neighborhood in the election process, we noticed that there are a bunch of fences on neighboring properties. Can you give me an idea very quickly as to what your neighbors look like in terms of how many of their yards are fenced in?
My neighbors on both sides have wooden fences that go around their entire property, so it's the entire back as well. It's in the swale. And then the neighbor, they're not in the neighborhood, they're in the neighborhood right next to it, which is, I'd say 2/3 of the back of our property is a big chain link fence, and then it goes like a mile. It's many acres. It's beautiful, beautiful woods, and that's the other thing to make sure that he can't get out and then go into the woods. We saw a deer in the woods like 10 feet from the house. So, but yeah, most of Spring Knoll is fenced in on pretty much every yard.
Any other questions or?
Not for the petitioner, but for Lance. Lance, with regards to this, once this has been brought up, and now we have this area that the petitioner may put in this fence, whose responsibility is it should the town of Zionsville come in and do work on that swale to remove the fence or to replace the fence? And
The property owner.
Say it again?
The property owner.
The property owner. So I just want that to be acknowledged, in particular because, we're having work done in our neighborhood, and there's an idea that when the contractor comes in and does work, that the contractor needs to put everything back just the way it was perfectly. And I think for the record, I just want that to be clear, as I'm getting, some pushback for that repair. So I just want to be clear that all these fences that are in this swale are at the risk of removal and not replacement moving forward. And even if we approve this tonight with a passing vote, does that still remain in place, or does that mean that this particular fence, if the town of Zionsville works through and does a repair on that swale or reroutes the swale, does the town of Zionsville, because we've approved this at the council level, have to replace this particular fence that gets approved tonight?
No, it does not. What the affidavit does is essentially restate the local ordinance that says you, as a property owner, are now expressly aware that anything you put within this easement is at your peril, and should it be occasion for loss, the burden's on you. It sounds great initially, but 1-2 property owners down the road, those are not, if these are awkward conversations, those are horrible conversations when you have to tell someone your fence, even if you have an affidavit of encroachment, your fence has got to move, your playground has to move, you name it out there. They're not fun conversations, but you are correct.
Great. I think that's important, having that on the record, and, the compassion for the situation. I completely understand, and I understand it from a different perspective, from an outsider, different than perhaps another counselor. So I appreciate that information. I appreciate that giving the public this acknowledgement that it is still your responsibility, should there be work in the drainage utility easement that needed to be completed by the town or the county, in my case. So, but thank you.
Mr. President, may I?
Yeah.
ask? So is it my understanding the encroachment agreement will still be, if we were to vote to uphold, deny the appeal, or uphold the appeal, which denies would the encroachment agreement still be signed at the end of the day, which basically spells out everything that Counselor Melton is alluding to?
Yeah, lots of double negatives here,
Yeah,
right?
I know. I'm trying to
Deny
think.
the denied approval. You are correct. It is executed. The affidavit is executed, and it is recorded with that parcel so that that knowledge is passed on to subsequent owners.
Okay.
For those who choose to read their entire title work at closing.
So it's in writing as well?
It's there, yes.
It runs with the land, so.
Lance, just to be clear, this, I'm trying to think like Mr. Raymond, who was here, what, a couple months ago, like, this doesn't impact people that are coming in the future, other than the fact that they know that, you know, if this gets approved, that we've done it, it is possible. I just don't want to, like, I'm thinking about the Pandora's box, right?
I understand. I'm always very cautious and aware of that. So maybe this is perhaps a rare occasion of reasonableness for me and not so rigid on the application of the rules, which I believe is very important to be universally similar. And not to jump ahead too much on the agenda, but this will be a talking point on the next agenda item. So there's always that. Like I said, this is the venue to have the subjective conversations. Why is this nearly totally unique from another situation? So,
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
So one other last comment is, so a fence can be put in front of or not in the drainage utility easement in this case, correct? So on the property owner has property, not all in the drainage utility easement.
He's attaching to the other fences.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make it difficult.
it's at the rear of I believe it's a 25-foot drainage and utility easement.
It would make the backyard
But he could.
quite small.
The reality is
It's
he could.
conceivable. It would be right
It
off
is-
the back
it is
porch.
Yeah, the reality is he could. And that's all he was asking, I think.
Yep.
So.
I think the other point to put out there is that there is no sewer underneath. That was another issue with the last request. And this is not an access point like the other situation where trucks might have to actually go down through the easement to service the drainage back there. So this is fully enclosed, not accessible that I could see unless you tore down a lot of fences. So it is a very different situation. And Lance, I very much respect your opinion and your approach on this because I realize you make an exception for one, you open the door. But this is the reason the appeals process, in my mind, exists, is because this is one of those situations where it completely makes sense.
And, you know, while we're sort of educating on the process too, this is not any implied drainage review to this. You put something in an easement, you also run the risk of changing the water flow and creating an adverse situation on a neighbor, and that, you know, that's on them. We get drug into the conversation because the implication is the town approved this, so I'm fine. But if you get out there and do anything in an easement, landscaping, fencing, or otherwise, and create a deleterious situation on your neighbor, that, you know, that's on the property owner. So lots of cautionary comments.
Yeah, there's a lot to work through on these things, and I've in 7 years on the council, this is the first time we've experienced a scenario where you've made a comment like you just made. And as I say in every one of these, every time we come across one of these, you're the expert in this stuff, and I appreciate your perspective and knowledge, just as all of our department heads are experts in these areas. I do think it's important, to your point, to keep in mind that this is a scenario where, if regardless of whether there's anything under it or not, if it does start to impact the neighbors negatively, we could have a potential problem, or Mr. Wood could have a potential problem there. I would go on record as saying this does not open up Pandora's box for me.
Thank you.
This is a very, this is a very specific situation, but it certainly does not open up Pandora's box. So I would not advise anybody in the town to just start suddenly sending in appeals. So, anything else from counselors?
I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on one second, Tim. Can we just figure out how we make this motion?
So you want to deny the,
So I guess what, so,
overrule the denial?
I was just going to approve the appeal.
Is that correct? Approve the appeal, or would we overrule or
Consideration
not?
of an encroachment appeal.
Uphold the appeal and authorize the town to engage in the consent to encroach agreement?
I'll let Evan take it.
Wow.
Well, I don't want to step on,
That's
your.
fine, that's fine.
You can second.
I can second, absolutely.
All right, Evan, go ahead.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion to uphold Mr. Woods' appeal and authorize the town to enter in the consent to encroachment and encroachment agreement.
Second.
I've got a first from Counselor Norris and a second from Counselor McElderry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion, okay, motion passes 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Thank you. Up next is a consideration of an ordinance amending the stormwater ordinance. This is ordinance 2024-15. This is a first reading, and we have Lance to present on this as well as Michael Susong, Stormwater Division Supervisor. George
Yes.
Lewis, if needed, right?
Thank you. Joining me for this next agenda item is Michael Susong, head of our Stormwater Division, and also with us this evening is George Lewis, our town engineer. Michael was definitely the lead of this effort. However, George significantly contributed to the effort and may be valuable for any questions from his perspective should they arise. Before you, you have consideration of ordinance 2024-15, amending Chapter 50 of the Code of Ordinances, which is our local drainage code. You received a lot of information on this, and I point out there are 2 red lines offered. There was a technical red line version, and there was a legal legal red line version in your packet. We're going to focus on the technical. Those are the staff-driven changes to the contents of the ordinance. Once we hand that off to General Counsel for the town, as well as Ms. Harris for their review, there was a little bit of back and forth. So that second legal shows all of our changes and then overlays the changes by the legal department, the 2 legal departments. And then, of course, those are combined, then all changes are combined into the clean version that is a part of the ordinance for your consideration. I'd like, before we get started, to supplement or highlight just a couple of points from the memo that was from me in your packet. And that is, 1, how timely. We are proposing the removal of the drainage easement encroachment process within the ordinance proper. We are one of very few, if any, municipalities or counties in this region that put that expressly in an ordinance. Most of us in the northern tier of Indianapolis area work with Christopher B. Burke Engineering and use their model. And we've not run across any other ordinance that still has this opportunity within it. That was originally included back in one of the first iterations of a modern drainage ordinance about 20-some years ago. And at the time, all we did was mimic the encroachment process that existed in planning and zoning. The easement encroachment process was already there. So we just wanted to perpetuate that same process and make sure that drainage easements had the same consideration as a generic easement. However, obviously, we're a growing community in size and population. These requests are becoming more and more prevalent. And I think also is the frustration of people who see this as an opportunity and assume the chances are good that they're going to be allowed to do what the ordinance forbids. But we think it's much cleaner, and it's our recommendation in this amendment that we remove that provision from our ordinance and match all of our peer communities. The other item is noted in section 50.007, wherein the DPW, or Department of Public Works, is assigned the authorities, rights, and duties to periodically maintain and amend the technical standards manual, which is accompanied by reference or referenced within the ordinance. So what is a technical standards manual in this case? It is about 500-plus pages, including appendices of water science, products, materials, technical design, calculations, and best management practices. If an ordinance tells you this is what you have to do, the technical standards is a dynamic and living document that says this is how you can achieve what you have to do. So there are many changes to the ordinance being proposed, so I'm not suggesting that we go line by line here. Rather, Michael will give a brief overview, kind of the driver behind this process and perhaps the length that he's been engaged in it. And keep in mind, of course, this is an introduction this evening for a first reading. We are happy if there are questions that don't get addressed tonight or pop up. We're happy to schedule conversations with any of you between this evening's introduction and that time when it's considered for its second or final reading. And obviously, it goes without saying, given the considerable effort and thought put into this, not just by our stormwater staff and engineering staff, guided by Christopher Burke Engineering, it is the recommendation of DPW that you consider this favorably. So, Michael, the show is yours.
All right, well, thanks, Lance. Well, get myself all set up here. Good evening. I'm really happy to be here to be talking to you tonight about this. It took a considerable amount of effort to get to this point. This presentation is an overview of the stormwater ordinance update. So the existing stormwater ordinance was adopted in on December 2nd, 2013. The proposed, give me a second here. All right. The proposed revisions fall into two categories: regulatory and non-regulatory edits. The effort to update the existing ordinance into the updated form involved many individuals in a very collaborative way. This included John Oberlander, Heather Harris, George Lewis, Lance, and Siavash Bake. Siavash works for Christopher Burke Engineering, as Lance mentioned. That Christopher Burke very much involved in the stormwater realm, and Siavash has updated many other communities' ordinance, but he's also created a model ordinance used throughout the state of Indiana for communities that don't even have an ordinance. In a practical sense, the stormwater ordinance provides three things: compliance with Environmental Protection Agency and IDEM regulations. 2, orderly development and redevelopment of land in our community with regards to stormwater quantity and stormwater quality. The third, it provides other needed specific regulations such as permits, closeout steps to close projects out, drainage in a water course, drainage easements, and many more. So those are like the three big things. When you think about it, you break it down into those three items, and there's a lot of words in the ordinance. There's a lot of detail. But if you keep that in mind as we move through this, it helps. Regulatory revisions. As we are a regulated municipal separate storm sewer system, commonly referred to as an MS4, we are required to comply with the regulations of EPA and IDEM. I like to think of this as a stack of umbrellas, with the EPA being at the very top and the states falling underneath that large umbrella. And then underneath each state, there's a regulatory entity, and in our case, it's the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, IDEM, and there's about 150 other MS4s within the state that have to comply with all these requirements. So there are specific things, these passed down regulations that come from the EPA and IDEM that we simply have to comply with, and they're really relatively worthwhile and very important to have, but it's very regulated, and we're trying to make sure that we're complying with those things that are very important. So examples of these in our proposed ordinance include wetland requirements and review time limits. Other revisions, I like to call these non-regulatory revisions. The bulk of these non-regulatory revisions are technical and formatting changes. These were done to improve the stormwater ordinance to help with the clarity in the actual document and align with current practices. From a policy standpoint, the policy change to remove the option to apply for a stormwater easement encroachment has been proposed in this ordinance as it stands today, right now. And then,
Michael, back to that last point, can you describe for me then the policy change specifically? Like the situation that we just encountered a few minutes ago is going to be removed from an option?
in this ordinance as it stands today, yes.
Okay.
And that was presented, God, I'm not sure exactly when that was put together and submitted, but that was before this last submittal from the individual here tonight. So I
guess.
I don't want to, I'll let Lance jump up here.
Sure, thank you. I had some communication from Ms. Harris, who felt it would, this council would be open to that, and it might be the will. Those are awkward and uncomfortable conversations, and I know that it's becoming more and more difficult to retain flexibility and latitudes, which introduces subjectivity to a lot of decision makings. They're not fun conversations to have. So Ms. Harris had suggested that we propose that. It's certainly up to you guys whether it goes or remains. So
Is there an appeal process, though, spelled out in a different manner?
no, there is not for a drainage easement. Now, that doesn't preclude someone from coming to you and saying, it happens at the county drainage board. So Boone County has a very similar ordinance. They do not have any type of encroachment appeal within their ordinance, but that hasn't stopped people from complaining to the commissioners and saying, do something about this. So it is kind of it still happens, it's just not formally recognized now in the ordinance, and when people read that, that would suggest to them that there's a good chance, perhaps, that they could get what they want. So it currently is entirely removed as a formal process in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar question, Lance. It removes the appeal process for council to weigh in as we did today, but what you're also suggesting is there's no appeal process through the town, through you, that they would apply for an appeal for you to make a determination.
No, this says the rules are the rules. Drainage easements exist for a purpose and reason, and there's nothing allowed in them.
So in the case of today, which was very unique, and I get that even for you, admittedly, you took a different opinion than you might otherwise, that would not have been able to happen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, it's an interesting confluence of factors that they would both be on the same agenda.
Right.
And I understand, and former counselors could probably speak to this. I don't know how many times this comes up. It's happened twice in my short tenure as a counselor.
It has not been, that's a real uptick in frequency.
Okay, that's what I was kind of hoping for. So my point, I guess, is when there are situations like this, we are removing that appeals process. And I understand that other communities have already done that, and this would be in conformance with them. But I kind of like the idea of being able to have someone who has a situation very unique, like this one, to be able to come forward. Again, 99% of the time, we're going to say, hey, sorry. But for that 1%, we're literally voting on an ordinance that would remove that opportunity. And Mr. Wood and his wife and their young child would have nowhere to go with this.
Understood.
So I don't think that this necessarily removes those awkward conversations. People are still going to present their case and make it awkward, but I like the idea of it being in there.
Certainly up to you, you know.
Sorry, we kind of
I'll let
broke Michael's.
conclude here.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump back on that conversation.
Well, that's what I'll do. We'll conclude here real quick. This update to the stormwater ordinance has been a collaborative effort to ensure compliance with other regulations and to make other revisions to improve the document. We believe this updated ordinance is ready for your consideration. You're happy to answer any questions or to discuss portions of this document to help you feel comfortable with the decision in hand. And I think we really do want you to feel comfortable with this in a broad sense. And so if there is any questions, happy to do that. And definitely want to get as much feedback as possible and appreciate it. Appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, I would point out, thank you very much, Michael. I would point out to counselors that this is, as they mentioned at the beginning, this is an ordinance as a first reading, so this will come back at the next town council meeting as well. And obviously, we can make adjustments as necessary. I will say, from my perspective, I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time dialed in on the removal of the encroachment recognition process, but from my perspective, I actually appreciate it. I think it makes it more cut and dry, and I think it gets it out of our hands, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, it is interesting to point out, President, that there is still an appeal of notice of violation. So someone could go and build that fence, they could be in violation, and then appeal it, and it comes back before the town council anyway. So it is, I don't know that it necessarily removes some of the problems that we think it might.
Yeah.
Is there a bigger problem, like this particular case that we just went over didn't seem to be as problematic as the one before, where we were concerned about growth into the pipes underneath, or the passageway for a dump truck. And I think, is there a way to separate the definition of what could be appealed versus not be appealed? Like, if we're talking about encroachment on the sewage pipes, you're pretty adamant that you gave us very strong feelings that you do not want that to happen. But if it's the encroachment on a swale, it's a little more flexible, and that's what we could consider. Like, is there a way to separate it that way? Am I saying that wrong? Like,
No,
it
I
could be
think
a
what you're saying is
free-flowing-
there a distinct, can we make a distinction between what stormwater facilities are within an easement and one or the other may be more favorably viewed for an encroachment? Possibly, we can certainly take a look. I'm not going to write things on the fly, but I hear what you're saying. And I think maybe before we leave here tonight, if it's possible to at least get some type of consensus of the council, even if it's not necessarily that I will do this if it says that, but give some direction on what you'd like to see and an amended ordinance next time we come before you. We can certainly look at that. Yeah.
May I ask a quick question? What are your MS4 partners? What's the protocol in Carmel, Westfield, Brownsburg? Do you know? Do they have a
No.
appeal process or no?
The answer is no. Yeah. Now we all recognize that there are maverick situations out there, right? You've got some subdivisions that have been around 20, 30 years, replete with these. And people didn't do this out of spite or to thumb their nose. That it was simply unaware of the restrictions and requirements. So we know that there's policing, and then there's stemming the proliferation of these, and we're focusing on stemming the proliferation of these, particularly in newer subdivisions. Now you're seeing more and more subdivisions come in with smaller lots, right? The developers are shrinking down the lots to make as many as possible, and to do that, then these lots are then heavily encumbered by the easements, because we all need drainage, we all need sewers, we all need utilities to our homes. So I think that it's, kind of tightening the belt is sort of a reaction to what we're seeing in the development world. In a perfect world, these wouldn't be on anybody's property. There'd be strips of common area, where these belong, and there'd just be wide open space. People could fence their stuff in. But I don't believe that we can legally, make those kind of requirements, certainly not in a drainage code. That would be more of a zoning type issue and subdivision control ordinance of whether we have those type of latitudes. Or can you mandate, and this is a little shooting from the hip here, not necessarily germane to this conversation, but if a lot, a lot has lots of minimum sizes, width, depth, ratio. If a lot has to be encumbered by a 15-foot easement, do you add 15 feet to the side of that lot? Now that may just make the conversation about more property and just not really affect any change, but that's kind of what we're encountering here, is these lots are smaller and smaller, driven by profit, and then they're just jamming these utilities in between each lots.
Is a measurement for the easement, like, I keep going back to last time, he needed 15 feet and his neighbor needed 15 feet, so that it became 30
Right, the minimum easement width is 30 feet,
And
and
who
that is
sets
off,
that?
our ordinance does.
We set it,
Yes,
not the
we
county?
set that. That's correct, we set that, and we kind of talked about this at that last easement.
Yeah.
We need every bit of that space when we're called to access these side and rear yards for operational space, material storage, dumping. It's very, very hard to work surgically. So you typically see these split between lots, 15 on one lot and 15 on the adjacent lot.
I don't do your job, so I don't know how wide it needs to be. It just seems a little extra wide. And I think that's what the requests are coming in at.
Well, I think you'd have the same request whether it was 5 feet off my property line, 15. You know, people are always going to want to maximize their entire lot.
Yeah.
Lance, we have a neighborhood in our town that has some issues with kind of a connected issue to completion, but it's partially like a unique drainage situation that was used in that neighborhood. And I think it's kind of a conversation we'll be having here soon, just to kind of chat about, at least the council. Would this new ordinance have any, would it have steered like that development potentially? And if you don't know what development I'm talking about.
I know.
Perfect. So would it have steered that development into a situation where potentially had it been more of a standard development, would it have forced it to be more of a standard development as opposed to being able to utilize some of the unique practices that were used, like permeable driveways, I guess?
Right. No, not at all.
Okay.
And in fact, the ordinance and the accompanying technical standards manual, which has FAQs or fact sheets on innovative stormwater best management practices, we encourage these things. You know,
Okay.
the archaic approach of your pond and pipes to a creek, we want to see that stop. We want to see these innovative, we want to see these practices that retain the water locally, let groundwater recharge. So in that particular case, no, I don't know that our existing ordinance nor this ordinance would have had any effect. The decisions that led to the situation now were, is it to make it entirely private.
Perfect. Yeah, I realized there was some unique drainage situations there, and this is standard drainage situation, 25-foot easement, swale. So I was just curious about that.
Well, to your point, the more developers become aware and comfortable with these innovative stormwater practices, the less need there are for easements. If you're managing your water without pipes, you don't need an easement.
Interesting. Great.
Lance, I guess I have a question. And again, always appreciate your leadership. I see the pros and cons. Obviously, there was.
Sure, it's a tough dilemma.
Obviously, we just had a scenario where we were able to approve, and so the process, the only one I recall in my tenure and 5 years of doing this, that it was approved. What has come to light, though, are these, for lack of a better word, rogue behaviors where people decide, I'm not going to ask for anything, I'm just going to go ahead and put it up. And even in the example we probably heard today, there may be dozens of folks who just decided, maybe they didn't even know they were doing something they shouldn't do. I don't know that this discourages or encourages that, if there's no appeal, or even for people who aren't following the regs anyway, they just kind of do what they would like to do because they see their neighbors doing it. What are the penalties, or what are processes in place already? We mentioned that if someone were told they can't do this, they could appeal. I think it's what Tim was saying. They could still appeal the process of retribution. But are we doing anything? How do we police this at all? And what are the penalties of? I think we're just not encouraging or discouraging what can continue to happen. You say we're on smaller lots. I think we're going to see more and more of this. But I don't know that this is going to solve the problem that you're trying to solve.
So policing is an impractical act. Our community is full of these, not just in more modern times, but going back ages and ages. You would need an entire team of people if you wanted to be proactive and look for these violations. Our approach has been when someone, perhaps our staff is visiting a site that's asked about an encroachment and they point to their neighbors. we can't even go in a backyard and stand there and not look around and see probably 3 violations. So we cannot react. We say if you feel like someone else is in violation of any code, we have a code violation inspection form, and we ask them to officially request it. And then it triggers this process. We say, you have a fence, you have this or that as an encroachment, you need to remove it, and then they will appeal to this body. And so then we don't have conversations about what I can't do, but what am I going to lose. So I think as a practical and realistic approach to this is we wait until we're made aware of a problem, and then we tackle these encroachments when there is a specific impact that we can associate with that. Otherwise, you know, in essence, you're just saying, hey, get your fence out of there because we don't like it. Get your landscaping, get your playground out of there, we don't like it. So we wait until a problem materializes and we have to investigate. And then that leads to very clunky and awkward processes, because many times people will flat out refuse, or the encroachment is something significant, a retaining wall holding up their driveway. And so instead of being able to go in quickly and efficiently and address the project or problem, we then have to go jump through hoops. We have to get rights of entry. We've got to come around backyards, come across private property with property. We have to get their permission anytime we're outside of an easement. And then it introduces the damage we call. We rut their yard up. They want it fixed perfectly. We hit a sprinkler. It's just really awkward when we don't have, and very non-productive when we don't have those easement rights. So a little glimpse, you know, into the madness that is easement management. But we are not proactive, and I don't suggest we become proactive, and we wait and react to these when problems are brought to our attention, and then do what's necessary to correct that.
And does someone know if a code violation inspection encroachment form is filled out, who filled it out, so that we don't have neighbors who hate each other suddenly looking for reasons to do it? Is it traceable, or is this, hey, someone in the world said this?
No, it's absolutely traceable. In the older processes, it's been a few years since we began requiring these to be recorded. So when you have a recorded document, that's readily retrievable.
Right.
And prior to that, the planning department, that was who these were issued through, I'm assuming maintained some type of internal records. So, you know, finger pointing in neighbors is nothing new.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Lance? I would just point out, as you think about this last slide here, the conclusion, our goal is to update the ordinance to ensure compliance with state and federal regulations and industry standards. The last update, Lance, you said was in 2013?
Correct.
I mean, I think that, as we've all mentioned at various stages throughout the course of this recent conversation, none of us are experts in this, and Lance, having engaged his entire town staff and the folks with Christopher Burke Engineering, I think that it's certainly much appreciated on my end, the time and effort and energy that's gone into this, and I think that, again, this is a first reading, so we can, you know, have additional discussion should we need to. I'm certainly supportive of it as it stands and as it's written today, and appreciate all the effort there. So,
Thank you. We look forward to receiving any comments subsequently between now and the second reading. And I know you really can't discuss anything amongst yourselves outside of a public meeting, so feel free to send your thoughts independently, and perhaps we can work with Council President Plunkett on what he and the leadership would like to see come back before this body.
So can I just reiterate one thing? So you're saying the removal of an encroachment recognition process is in compliance with state and federal regulations and industry standards, or is
The
that
latter.
not? Because when you said Ms. Harris worked on that, that made me thought that was more just individual with us.
This aligns our ordinance nearly identically to every other municipality and county in the area. We are one of the few, if the only, municipality that recognizes a formal process for encroachment.
Okay.
I also think that helps just from a development perspective too. You mentioned just folks that come in here. I mean, there is more uniformity, and it's just cleaner, and you know, they don't have to worry about a lot of requests should you get into that type of situation. So,
yeah.
Any other questions for Lance?
Thank you very much for your
Thank you, Lance. Thank
attention.
you, Michael.
I know this is,
George, you got off easy.
I know this is a little bit of minutia, but it really is an important step for the town.
Great. If there are no other questions, I would make a motion to introduce ordinance 2024-15 on first reading.
Second.
I got a first from President Plunkett, second from Counselor Norris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Last new business item is a consideration of an ordinance for a stop sign at Bennett Parkway and Red Road. This is ordinance 2024-16. This is also first reading, so this will come back to us at the next meeting unless we felt it appropriate to suspend the rules.
And Lance, we have Lance available here as well.
Good evening, Lance, Director of Public Works for the town of Zionsville. Just glad to be back in front of you. Sorry for the Lance show tonight. The last item on your agenda, I won't necessarily say was oversight, but the history of Red Road was a little bit unique. It came in initially in the town of Zionsville, and hopefully this map that was on the memo helped you to get oriented of what we're talking about. Well, you can see the red line representing the county line. When Red Road was first built, it was built up to that red line. The expectation was it would be retained or stay a private access drive. However, all the development in Carmel really wanted that road to become public so that they could manage it and regulate it. And somewhere through the process, Red Road became publicly dedicated in the town of Zionsville and Boone County. This came to light recently with a citizen request who wanted a stop sign, and my first thought was, oh, that's, little Red Road's private, but we did find out it is publicly dedicated. And I guess since we're in a night of firsts, this might be the first time I've ever said this, which is we did not conduct a traffic study related to this, and you usually hear me say that speed limit stop conditions need to be predicated upon a study. So here we go. First, this makes sense, and I can't find a reason to spend any money investigating this or time due to its proximity to Michigan Road. This really needs to be codified as a stop. Any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I drive through this intersection a lot. Notice I stopped, but I noticed there wasn't an intersection. I guess to Councilor Plunkett's mentioning, I would be in favor of suspending the rules if appropriate to pass this today. I don't think of anything more important than putting up a stop sign at a controlled intersection.
This is just a stop sign stopping at like Jaw House behind there and not the east-west from
This affects nothing on Bennett Parkway, which
Okay,
is
that's what I
the
wanted
main
to hear.
road, the east-west, then down to 106. This is the little access road behind Jala House.
Where you should stop, but there's
Like I
no
said,
sign.
it makes all the
Okay.
sense in the world.
Yeah,
And there's my statistical
I'm all
analysis.
for suspending the rules. So.
Any questions from counselors? I would entertain a motion for this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve on first reading ordinance number 2024-16.
We would still introduce on first reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd still introduce on first
Yep.
reading,
Then suspend.
and then vote, suspend the rules, vote again. So I've got a first to introduce on first reading from Counselor Norris,
Second.
second from Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. I would make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
A second from Counselor Norris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
I will make a motion to approve on final reading ordinance 2024-16.
Second.
First from Counselor Norris, second from Counselor Sampson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next on the agenda is other matters. Are there any other matters from counselors? Have none. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First from Vice President Burke,
Second.
a second from Counselor Sampson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 15th, 2024 at 7:30 a.m. in the Zionsville Town Hall Council Chambers. Final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana Open Door Law. Everybody have a safe 4th. Thank you.